Welcome back to ZNGP Today. Casey Stoner has offered a clear, technical explanation for Marc Márquez's stunning 2025 form. It isn't just bike performance, it's Márquez's way of riding with, not behind, the electronics. Stoner argues the Spaniard's experience and feel let him predict grip windows and use the Ducati's electronic aids to amplify, rather than mask, his pace. The result is a season of near-total dominance. Ducati General Manager Gigi Dall'Igna says the radical setup changes the factory introduced at Balaton were aimed at one thing: restoring Pecco Bagnaia's basic confidence on the GP25. After a weekend that began disastrously for the two-time champion, Q1 exit and a poor sprint, the team's overnight rework delivered a race feeling Bagnaia hadn't had all season. For Ducati, the priority is now consolidating that sensation rather than celebrating a single result. Jorge Martin turned a poor grid slot into one of the weekend's most eye-catching recoveries, ripping through the field to finish fourth at Balaton Park. The result resurrected talk of podiums, and of Martin's potential on the Aprilia. But the numbers tell a cooler story. His race pace was excellent, but the damage done by qualifying left him with too much to do to realistically reach the podium. Jack Miller turned an awkward weekend into a fireworks display on the opening lap at Balaton Park, surging from 17th to 12th and briefly becoming Yamaha's best runner, only for two crashes to wipe out what looked like a point-scoring comeback. The Australian lamented a baffling front-end failure at Turn 1 and a final overpush that ended his race. Team and rider now call the weekend a painful, but might have been. Don't forget to click subscribe button and the bell icon for MotoGP news update. Stoner stopped short of calling Marquez flawless, but stressed the scale of the achievement: 10 GP wins, a near unassailable championship lead, and a streak that has reshaped expectations. He suggested nobody quite foresaw this level of dominance when the season began. He said the combination of Ducati and Marquez has been overwhelmingly dominant. "I don't think we foresaw this extent." Dominance at this level forces rivals to reevaluate whether they're chasing rider skill, machine performance, or both. Stoner singled out something subtle. Marquez often looks relaxed because he rides at a level that is just short of maximum attack, preserving tires and minimizing mistakes, yet still extracting unrivaled lap times. That measured approach magnifies returns over a whole weekend. He observed Marquez isn't flat out every lap. That restraint is part of the secret. Consistency beats sporadic fury. Managing sessions' entire life is now as decisive as raw speed. The heart of Stoner's analysis: riders of an older schooling learn to find grip in front of electronics. That is, they develop an anticipatory sense of how a tire or chassis will behave and ride accordingly, using electronics as an enhancement rather than a crutch. Marquez, Stoner argues, belongs to that lineage. The older guards still know what it's like to find grip. They ride ahead of the electronics. In an era of advanced aids, human anticipation and feel remain a force multiplier, and Marquez is exploiting that interplay. Stoner contrasted Marquez's approach with younger riders who may rely more heavily on electronic intervention and automated systems. By predicting grip and then letting the electronics do the refinement, Marquez generates lap time others struggle to match. He said Marquez relies on those electronics and finds pace nobody else can. The best crews and riders treat electronics as a precision tool, not a replacement for the rider's judgment. Stoner noted a counterintuitive effect of Marquez's recovery from injury. The process seems to have sharpened his thinking and made him more surgical in how he applies speed. The result is a rider who combines experience, calibration, and the bike's strengths to lethal effect. He suggested the injury period has matured Marquez's racecraft, making him even more complete. Adversity sometimes creates a more disciplined champion. Marquez's season looks like proof of that thesis. Stoner's verdict reframes Marquez's 2025 surge as a blend of old-school feel and modern electronics mastery. It's not that the Ducati suddenly became untouchable on paper, it's that Marquez knows how to ride in front of the tech so the tech can work best. For rivals, the prescription is uncomfortable. Develop better software, sure, but also cultivate the kind of instinctive anticipation that turns electronic assistance into a decisive edge. Across Friday and Saturday, Ducati progressively altered Bagnaia's geometry and balance, what Dall'Igna described as significant setup changes, rather than small incremental tweaks. Those centimeter-level adjustments affected steering and front-end behavior and were key to the improved race feel. He confirmed the team made a substantial setup change after qualifying that improved the rider's sensations. When a team moves from tuning to re-engineering, the payoff is rarely instant, but the benefit can be structural and lasting. Dall'Igna was explicit. The weekend's single positive wasn't the 9th place but that Bagnaia rediscovered feel. The factory believes results will follow only once the rider is comfortable performing routine race tasks that previously felt unstable. What matters right now is not the result of the race itself, but the feeling he has rediscovered on the bike. For a rider whose margins come from trust at the front end, reclaiming feel is the necessary precursor to pace. Dall'Igna used the telling phrase, Ducati must get Bagnaia confidence in normal things. Braking stability, turn-in, exit predictability. Those everyday inputs are a foundation. If the rider can perform them instinctively, competitive laps naturally follow. He said Bagnaia must get used again to things that should be normal but weren't with the prior configuration. Fixing fundamentals is slower and less glamorous than headline upgrades, but it's reliably effective. The Balaton reset arrives after a tense fortnight in which public frustration briefly flared between Bagnaia and Ducati following Austria. The rider retracted his harshest comments before the Hungarian weekend. Dall'Igna's post-race emphasis on feeling and trust reads as both technical assessment and a political olive branch. Rebuilding confidence is at once mechanical and relational. Engineers must deliver solutions, and the rider must feel supported while trying them. Dall'Igna stressed the real work begins now, confirmed the chosen setup direction over different tracks and tire windows. Barcelona and the upcoming rounds will be the proving ground. If the improvements are repeatable, Ducati can scale them. If not, more iteration awaits. The next stage will therefore be important to confirm the chosen path. We can't wait for this to happen. We believe in Pecco, and he knows it. Short-term smiles matter less than sustained, measurable gains across circuits. Balaton may have offered a breakthrough feeling for Pecco Bagnaia, but Ducati's message is sober. This is the start of a process, not the end. The team is prioritizing the simple, repeatable confidence that allows a champion to race instinctively, and only when that baseline is secure will they expect lap times and podiums to follow. Martin's weekend began with a handicap. Starting 17th, after a difficult qualifying, he spent the early laps fighting traffic instead of focusing on a clean race rhythm, and that cost him time and positional flexibility. He praised the team and his effort, noting the frenetic first lap and the gains he made through it. On a debut, tight circuit like Balaton, starting mid-pack instantly makes a podium bid exponentially harder. Martin gained ground early, overtaking several big names in the opening laps and settling into a consistent race pace. From lap 14 to the flag he actually recorded a marginally faster average than Marco Bezzecchi, 1 minute and 38.714 seconds versus 1 minute and 38.736 seconds. That mid to late race pace proves Martin had the speed to run with the front group once clear air was found, but pace alone couldn't erase the initial deficit. Over 26 laps, the raw math stacked against Martin. The cumulative deficit to Bezzecchi at the flag was 3.581 seconds. The per-lap edge was only 0.002s in Bezzecchi's favor across the whole race, and Martin's late race marginal gains would have closed only a sliver of the gap. Even with a flawless pass on Morbidelli earlier, Data suggests Martin could have only trimmed roughly 0.286s off the finishing gap, not enough to bridge to third. Small per-lap deltas add up, and starting deeper means you concede many of those tenths before the race settles. Martin's route to the front involved overtaking Fabio Quartararo, Pol Espargaro, Brad Binder, Luca Marini, Franco Morbidelli and Pecco Bagnaia, a parade of quality moves that cost time and tire life. He singled out a moment with Morbidelli. He went wide and lost time, as the turning point where the podium slipped away. I was losing with Frankie. I went wide. If I had managed to overtake him quicker, I don't know if I could have reached Marco. Probably not, but maybe a bit closer. Passing big names is spectacle, but each pass extracts a tax in energy, tire and opportunity. Martin ran a medium rear while Bezzecchi and others used softs. Had Martin started closer, he might have converted a tire life advantage into a late charge. But tire strategy can only capitalize on position you already have. Starting 17th robbed Martin of the chance to play that strategic card earlier. Strategy is multipliers on top of advantage, not miracle makers for a deep grid slot. Balaton underlines something important about Jorge Martin's season. His raw race pace and overtaking hunger are very much intact, but the single lap work in qualifying remains the gating factor for podiums. Fourth was a statement of promise, a reminder that the potential is there. Yet the data makes clear the podium was always a stretch from 17. Fix qualifying, and those late race battles could turn into regular rostrums. For now, Martin's comeback is progressing one surgical step at a time. Penalized to the back of the grid, Miller answered with one of the weekend's most aggressive starts, slicing through the field and neutralizing the three-place grid sanction in a single lap. When Quartararo served his long lap, Miller briefly sat 11th and topped Yamaha, looking well-placed to convert pace into points. The weekend pivot arrived on lap 6. Miller described a sudden, inexplicable loss of front grip the moment he opened the throttle out of turn 1, a moment he says was identical to previous laps except he'd been a little bit slower. The result was an unforced crash that left everyone, rider and engineers, searching for an explanation. As soon as I touched the throttle, the front went away and that was it. Honestly, I hadn't done anything different from the lap before. A real head-scratcher. Front-end failures that don't have a clear mechanical or rider cause are the worst kind. They erode confidence and complicate setup work for the rest of the weekend. Miller refused to bow out. He remounted, pushed to regain positions and briefly clawed his way back into the fight despite a minor clutch issue. 10 laps later, while trying to make up ground, he fell again at turn 11, this time admitting he'd probably been pushing a little bit too hard. The double DNF left potential points on the table, and the team pondering a lost chance. Despite the crashes, Miller's weekend pace suggested a top 10 was realistic, something the Pramac team director also believed. The combination of strong single-lap speed and race pace means the disappointment is not a sign of decline but of squandered potential. Borsoi flagged morale as a concern. Crashes sap momentum, but also repeated a common mantra: finish races. For Miller, the immediate focus will be on regrouping physically and mentally, diagnosing the turn 1 mystery, and turning speed into points in the next rounds. For sure, it doesn't help the morale. As I've told him many times, the key is to try and finish races. Gino Borsoi's statement. Off track, Miller's future remains a subplot. Rumors of a Pramac seat for 2026 persist, and an announcement could arrive before Catalunya. The weekend's mix of promising speed and unfortunate incidents will be weighed by decision-makers. Experience and a fighting spirit count, but consistency matters too. He stayed non-committal about timing. We'll see what comes in the next weeks. Contract calls consider more than one weekend, but costly mistakes in visible races can influence perceptions. Balaton was a microcosm. Jack Miller showed the raw speed and aggression to score big, then saw it slip away through 2 painful incidents. The head-scratcher at turn 1 will demand forensic attention from Pramac Yamaha's engineers, and Miller must convert blistering pace into finishes if he wants the headlines to read retained rather than regret. For now it's a weekend to forget, and a clear challenge to fix.